Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Pressing Matters Podcast, the book publishing podcast. Earlier this week, I talked about my experience of becoming an author through a portfolio career. I talked about how I haven't worked one set career or aimed for one particular certificate to create all of my professional background. So, I wanted to bring in an author today who does have a traditional professional background to compare to those of you who are trying to balance a regular 9 to 5 job and your own writing. Today, we have Trevor G. Jackson, the author of The Popper Field. He's here with us today to talk about both hats that he wears, both his lawyer hat and his author hat. He'll give us a chance to compare and contrast, talk about the challenges and the strengths of having two different careers at the same time. Let's give Trevor a chance to introduce himself as a lawyer, an author, and a person.
Ugh, the grind. Legal work is way less glamorous than TV makes it look. All of those nights buried in discovery responses, motions in limine, deadlines, procedural hoops. Ugh. Writing is the opposite. It's total freedom. You get to make the rules or break them, and sometimes catch lightning in a bottle when inspiration hits. I couldn't have written The Popper Field without being a lawyer first. Law is its own form of analysis, like psychology or medicine. It's a constant balancing act between ambition and fairness, public order, personal freedom. That tension is all over the book. Braxton is constantly navigating gray areas where the right choice isn't always the obvious one. And the people around him are driven by competing incentives, pressures, and histories. Once you start thinking like a lawyer, you can dissect just about any situation and see the hidden gears, like who's driving it, what they want, and why. That framework is basically story structure, hiding in plain sight.
So that makes a lot of sense. My follow up question is then why did you specifically choose a thriller to write? Or more specifically, a legal thriller?
I could solve most of the Encyclopedia Brown stories before the reveal. I've always loved mysteries because they're about motive and insight, figuring out why people do what they do. It's the same part of my brain that helps me in law, just with more room for creativity and those random aha flashes. I've had a pretty strong sense of right and wrong since I was a kid. My parents used to say I should be a lawyer, which might have been their nice way of saying I argued too much. But I've always hated seeing decent people get abused by authority. The law felt like, I don't know, a way to understand how the power works and, how to make it bend your way.
Thanks so much, Trevor, for sharing your experience. When I talked earlier this week, I talked about how it was difficult for me to balance a bunch of different jobs, but it also really contributed to my learning as an author. So I'm curious, what's it like to be a lawyer? And why did you choose to become an author alongside it?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, as a lawyer, you don't get to shrug off responsibility. Once you take on a client, you're committed. Writing's the same way in a lot of ways. It demands follow through. The difference is my legal writing makes the money, while my creative writing eats it. At least for now. But both are necessary. One keeps me stable, the other keeps me sane.
Thanks for sharing about your experience. I did ask some people that listen to Pressing Matters podcast what they would want to hear from you. One question I had from the audience is how does your author hat and your legal hat prove similar and different in who you are and how you function in your writing?
The law can be a grind, but writing it just feels different. It's work that refuels me instead of drains me. Even when it's tedious, it's still kind of fun. And it's nice to build something that's yours, not just a case file that gets archived and forgotten.
Becoming an author is not just about writing. It's about learning how to go through the editing process, publishing, marketing. But even more than that, it teaches you some life skills you might not have realized. There's deadlines, there's getting along with others in the field that maybe you wouldn't have regularly interacted with. What do you do to help yourself balance your weekly schedule, and what does your writing and lawyer schedule typically look like?
I usually don't know what my week looks like until Monday morning. Even when I try to block out time, inspiration, well, doesn't always cooperate. So I write when I can, how I can. Some days I crank out thousands of words, other days, nothing. You just gotta let the inspo pick the time and not fight against its flow. Law teaches discipline and precision, which helps a ton, until it doesn't. Sometimes I'll catch myself describing scenery like I'm drafting a patent application. That's when I have to loosen up and remember that, I'm writing prose, not an affidavit. So yeah, the structure definitely helps, but you have to unlearn a little of it to sound human again.
When you step into the author world, it can be pretty intimidating. It feels like everybody's been in this space for a long time. How can people become an author and balance their other job? It just doesn't feel possible for a lot of us. But the truth is that it is. There's a lot of options to help you. And one thing I want everybody to realize is that there's always the option of an indie publishing house. An indie publishing house allows you to really do it all. If your dream is to write a book, then focus on that. And when it comes to marketing and publishing, let the professionals do the rest. There are some people that have the lifestyle where they live and write and publish, and that's what they do for their main career. But for the majority of people listening to this podcast, writing is a side hobby, and they really want to focus on things that bring them joy. So I encourage everybody to look at the option of an indie publishing house and let them do the marketing for you so that you can enjoy the part of writing that brought you there. Let's ask Trevor then, what's his biggest challenge of balancing these two careers and what would benefit him the most of using an indie publishing house?
Huh. Honestly, it's just finding the time and energy between court calendars, deadlines, clients, and running my practice. Book marketing sometimes feels like I'm just screaming into the void. The editing, final proofing, book cover design, marketing, outreach, staying visible. It's basically a second job. And trying to do it without feeling like you're constantly self-promoting, that's tricky, at least for me. Then there's the imposter syndrome. That struggle is real. But connecting with readers has made the therapy bills totally worth it. It's a lot of juggling, to be sure. But I remind myself, you don't need to sell a million copies. You just need to reach the readers who will truly connect with it. And that's what makes it worthwhile.
We've talked a little bit about using indie publishing houses, and we've talked about the challenges of publishing, marketing, writing, editing, and all of the steps that are included in creating a great novel. What I want to know from Trevor is that he really seems to have a balance. He has a law practice, he's an author. So, Trevor, my question for you is how do you successfully balance both of these identities?
Okay, well, first off, thank you for saying successfully. Yet another brilliant question. But yeah, some days I'm still trying to believe that part. It feels good, not in an egotistical kind of way, more like in a quiet, grateful way. I spent years thinking I had to choose between being practical and being creative. Turns out you can be both, and each can actually make the other better.
You've seemed to do a lot of different steps. You're a lawyer, you own your own practice, you've gotten yourself into some bookstores, and you seem to really enjoy the writing process, which is something that I hope that all authors experience. My question for you then is what could be next? Are you going to dive more into your law practice, or do you have something lined up in your authorhood journey?
Well, right now I'm working on more of like a legal thriller, told through the defendant's point of view. The courtroom scenes are the anchor, and the story flashes between how the prosecution and defense each tell the same case using the same evidence. It's a total work in process. And I'm also toying with either a prequel or sequel to the pop repeal down the road. Creativity is unpredictable. I just follow it where it leads me.
Thank you so much, Trevor, for joining us. It's always great to hear from different authors. I love that we can bring authors with different backgrounds so that our listeners can get a variety of ideas. Earlier this week, I talked about my pretty flexible career and how my life has really changed in the types of jobs that I work. For those of you that live a lifestyle more like Trevor, where you have a 9 to 5 or a regular stable career you've done for a long time, and authorhood is just kind of on the side for you. You still love it, it fulfills you, and you're great at it, but it isn't something you're able to do all the time. Hopefully, this gave you an idea how to make that balance, and I really encourage you to take that thought of an indie publishing house to heart. It's really easy to get burnt out when thinking of marketing, and if you don't know how to get yourself into a bookstore, that's only one step. Let the professionals do it and really lean into what you love, which is writing, so that you don't find yourself burning out and wearing too many hats. All right, Trevor, it's time for you to sign off. And then I hear you have a special code word for us. For our listeners, remember you can go on our Instagram and you'll see a photo of Trevor that says episode drop. Make sure you go on that and comment what you think the code word is from his hint. All right, Trevor, go ahead and sign off.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast. I really appreciate you taking the time to read the Popper Field and for putting so much thought into your questions. I genuinely look forward to reading your own work, and I really admire the energy and drive it takes to make something like this happen. Oh, and finally, the code word is something that everyone's chasing but never fully knows.
I hope this episode where we talked about a career that might be more related to the type of career that you as a listener work. If you have any more questions, feel free to always reach out to us on Instagram. And as a reminder, we have a huge giveaway going on. If you go on our Instagram and you comment below and let us know that you've subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, and or Apple, you can get entries into getting a PR package from Pressing Matters. And if you want to know what that looks like, we have some examples on our page. I'll drop our Instagram handle in the comments so that you can go ahead and check us out. But as a reminder, it's at pressingmatters_podcast. The more you let us know what you want to hear, the more we're listening. We film every week and we want to know what you'd love to learn. Have a great week, and we will see you next Friday.